Right, okay. Good morning, guys. Can you let me know if y'all can hear me and see a screen? Yes, no? Yeah, no? Okay. So I think we've had a long break and we're back. I was not able to do the class for the last 2 weeks, I think, because I was either something came up somewhere down the line. Maybe I was not at home. Maybe I was had to go somewhere. So, right. Okay, just to let you all know the plan, guys, what we have left in this. So, what is really happening? Okay, so we have completed the MCQs for unit 9 and 10, if I'm not mistaken. And we need to start off with the essay questions for unit 9 and 10. That is from 2011 all the way to 2020. Okay, so we have those essay questions. Once the essay questions are done, we will be moving on to unit 11 and 12, right? There I will only be discussing the MCQs. I'm not going to do the essay questions because I don't think most of y'all are doing those questions as well. And given my busy schedule, I'm just going to stop off with the MCQs. But then that's a complete discussion which we started almost a year ago now. I think I started Beyond the Classroom somewhere around November. Okay, so I think until unit number 7 is available on our YouTube channel, unit 8 and stuff I have not yet put in. I have not found the time. So eventually I will put those recordings as well. That is unit 8 and 9 and 10 also. So 11 and 12 probably will come in the week. So I'm thinking if we could have a longer class and finish off unit number 9 and 10 today itself, right? We'll see how it goes. We'll see how the timing goes and we'll see how we feel about this as well. Usually I break the essay questions into 2 parts now, right? So we do one till around 2015-16, then the next class we do the rest, right? So I'm thinking if we can finish it off, finish all the questions, right? Because it's the same question that comes here and there. So I'm not going to go into very detail into each of these questions because I would have done it when I discussed the MCQs, right? So when I have discussed the MCQs, I would have gone through in detail. I would have explained each and every concept. So since this is the essay questions, right, I will not go into very detail. I'll just tell you all, where and where you all can focus on, what and what you all can write, right? And then talk about things, right? And just keep in mind, okay, so for unit number 9 and 10, right, if you're planning to write this essay question in your paper, you need to study both the units, that is international trade, unit number 9, and foreign finance, the one with the balance of payment and all of that, that is unit number 10. So you need to study both of those units to write this essay question, that is essay question number 8 in your paper. And some of you all might think, why should I study 2 units just to write one essay question? Okay, so yes, it might look like a lot of effort, but the good news about that is when there are 2 units for one essay question, they don't question in depth, right? The questions that come out are very basic questions that come, okay, because they have a very vast area to question. They have 2 entire units to give you a question from, so they don't question the smallest ones. The hardest areas, no. So they test you, like, I'll say, from the top, right? They test you, the basic areas is what is being tested. They don't go into very detail, ask the minor parts, no, right? So that is the good side of it. So as students, what you all should ideally be doing is focusing on, let's say, going prepared for unit number 6, sorry, question number 6, 7 and 8, right? In your A-level paper, you all do have 2 months to go, right? Given that A-levels is postponed, there is 2 months to go. So there is still time. If you have not yet studied, if you have not yet, gone through these units, there is time which you all can use to start studying and get things done. Trust me, guys, if you really want to get it done, one unit, even within a week, you can finish, right? If you have a proper note, I don't know, my previous students, you might have my recordings also, right? So within a week, trust me, if you really want to get it done, you can study one entire. That's up to you all, right? That has to come from you all. That can't come from my end, right? So there is enough time. If you all have left the unit, if you all have thought that you all are not doing this unit, trust me, there is time that you all can still start from the very beginning and get this unit started. Okay. Should we study 2022 stats as well? 2020 stats. Yeah, good to know 2020 stats from the CBSL report. There's no harm on knowing that, right? So you all do have time again. Go through the 2020 stats as well. So see what has happened from 2019 to 2020, right? Have a basic idea there. Okay, right. So we'll start with 2011. I'll be going a little bit faster, guys, not the normal pace. So a little bit faster, and probably let's see how much we could finish. Okay, right. So 2011 A levels question number 8. So we start off with list 4 main items each of exports and imports of Sri Lanka. So what are the main imports and exports of Sri Lanka? If you look at this, right? So I'll just show you a few. Hold on. Correct. So if you look at the main imports and exports, yes, exports, you have garments for sure, right? Okay. Yeah. Okay. So in this is just a diagram, right? Okay. But here, look at this. So if you look at this, right, our main exports, right? So we have garments, okay, we have tea, we have rubber, and if I'm not mistaken, this is petroleum products, okay. And then if you look at our imports, we have petroleum, again garments, guys. Now, what is this importing of garments? Now we are exporting finished garments. We are importing the cloth, the thread, right? All of that is being imported. That is why there is another T-shirt kind of thing over here. So then you have machinery, you have construction items, building items, right? So you have vehicles, okay. So if you look at, okay, if I'm to give you names of these, let's see if it is over there. Okay, that's pharmaceutical, yes. Let's see, there is another diagram that is over there. Exports, right. Okay, so you can even get from this, okay. So you have a pie chart over here. So if you look at it, textiles and garments is one of the main areas. Then you have rubber products, you have petroleum products, you have food, beverage, and tobacco, right? So look at the percentages, right? Then if you look at, there is a better diagram. I can't find that better diagram. Yes. Okay, so even you can even get it from here, guys, right? So from percentages, see, T 11.3%, right? You have textiles and garments 46.9%. You have rubber products 7.3. You have petroleum products 4.3%. Gems, diamonds, jewelry 2.6. Food, beverages, and tobacco 3.7. Right? So you have industrial exports. You have agricultural exports. So just know the top 4, right? That is what you'll have to know. Then if you look at the import side of it, right? Import expenditure. Again, I'll show you this. Okay. So look at this, right? Main imports is we mainly import fuel, right? See 19.5%. Then you have textiles and textile article, that is like cloth, thread, those kind of things, that is a 14.6%. Then you have food and beverage, that is a 7.2. Then under non-consumer this thing, you have personal vehicles 4.1%, medical and pharmaceuticals 2.8%, right? So those big items, guys. Now when you're writing, when they say 4 main imports and exports, you write the main ones. Don't write the small ones. I think for those who came into my classes in the tute, I would have given the main top four or top 5, right? Imports and top 5 exports. Just check whatever tute that you're studying, it has to be there. Okay, so those are the things that you can write. Then if you move on to question number 2, so that's question 1 done, right? Hold on. Okay, so question, this board has got updated and now it's a little new. Okay, question 1 is done. Okay, now question 2, part 8, right? Question 8, part 2. List 5 arguments to support trade restrictions. Guys, what is trade restrictions? Can you give me another word for this? Trade restrictions. Another word. What do we call this? Trade what? These restrictions are also called? They're also called trade barriers. Okay, another word. What are they called? Trade protectionism? Yes. So trade restrictions, in other words, guys, in your unit, right? The topic that you all study this thing called protectionism. That is how you all study this, right? So in your tute, most probably that's how it's in my tute also, called trade protectionism. Now, what is this trade protectionism? Whom are we trying to protect, or what are we trying to do over here? This trade protectionism, in very simple terms, means what? It means, right, for any product coming from abroad, that means for any product that you're importing, the government is setting, right, they're either putting a tariff, right, that means a tax on the import, so that that price will increase, or they are putting a quota, or they are putting, some sort of another form of restriction, maybe administrative barriers. So why are they doing this? They're doing this to do what? To help the local industries, right? To protect the local. Remember, in my class, I have explained the story of Coca-Cola and Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola is the local producer, right? Coca-Cola, Pepsi, they are foreign, multinational brands. So if these Coca-Cola, Pepsi, and all of these brands, right, they can produce at a very low cost, guys, because they are serving the entire country, right? So they can produce whatever that they are producing at a very, very low cost. So can our local guy, Coca-Cola, survive with, people like Coca-Cola? No. So what does the government do? Whenever there is a Coca-Cola or Pepsi that comes into the country, government charges an import tariff from this Coca-Cola and Pepsi, so that the price of Coca-Cola and Pepsi goes up. That is why, guys, now this Coca-Cola and Pepsi, it's somewhere around, let's say, 250, 300 rupees. But actually, if there was no taxes, nothing, they could have sent that for even a very low price, even for like 100 rupees, 150 rupees. But Coca-Cola can't survive in the market by just getting 100, 150. So what does the government do? Government charges a tax on Coca-Cola and Pepsi. So Coca-Cola's and Pepsi's prices go up, meaning Coca-Cola also can now charge a higher price, because Coca-Cola can't survive with a price of 100 or 150 for their product. So given that there is a tariff, now they can survive. So protectionism, guys, what are the reasons? Oh, why do we have this protectionism? Like I said, the main reason, right? The first main reason to have protectionism is to protect, right? To protect what? Domestic firms, right? To protect domestic firms. And again, what else, right? Let's say to prevent dumping. Okay, so to prevent dumping. What is dumping, guys? Dumping is where the foreign countries, right, they send in their products at a price even below their cost. Now, this happened in China, right? So there was one point in China, right? I think it was steel or iron. I can't remember the story exactly, right? It was steel or iron, right? So they have produced so much of steel or iron. Okay, this is steel, right? They have produced so much of steel. Now they can't sell it in China. Okay, it's everyone, the demand is met. So what they did is they dumped it into another country. I think it was the European Union or USA. I can't remember, one of these countries. They dumped it there at a price even below their cost, because they know in their country they can't sell the steel, so they won't even mind selling it off to another country even below the cost. That is what you call dumping. So when they go and, let's say, sell it below the cost, right, then let's say huge amounts of steel below the cost, what happens to the suppliers in USA, the steel suppliers in USA? Can they compete with this? They can't. Those are problems, right? So we would have discussed this in detail in our theory and revision classes. Whoever you all go to also would have discussed. It's a very interesting story, right? Dumping and all of it. I'm hoping you all remember something. Okay. So yes. Okay, nice. There is a lot of answers that's coming. So I'll okay, to prevent the entry of demerit goods. Yes. Now, for example, there can be a lot of demerit goods that come, right? Goods that with negative externalities, right? All of that is there. You can prevent it through protectionism. You can minimize the BOP deficit. Why? Through protectionism, what happens? You're limiting the amount of imports that is coming in. No, if you can limit the amount of imports, then you can control the, right, to minimize BOP deficits, right? What else? You can okay, so to earn government revenue, okay, yes, to control illegal activities, fine, right? To earn government revenue. All of this could be reasons, right? So you all can think and write others as well. I'm just giving you a few reasons why there is protection. Because on the same side, please know the other side of this as well, right? On hold on. Okay, right? So know the other side of this, right? On what is the other side of it? Arguments against protectionism. So yes, to protect strategically important industries, right? All of that, right? To eliminate problems of BOP deficits, right? Yes, can include. So this is what yes, they're saying list. No, so when they say list 5 arguments, you don't have to write paragraphs. You simply write points, right? So don't go into paragraphs and do all of that. Not me. Then okay. So Guys, when they say arguments often to support, you write the advantages, the good side of it, right? If they ask you arguments against protectionism, you write the bad side. Okay, done. So question number 3 then. Distinguish between nominal rate of protection and effective rate of protection. Yes, what is nominal rate of protection? What is the effective rate of protection? The nominal rate of protection in very simple terms is the tariff rate, right? Is the percentage tariff that has been imposed on the imported good. Now to explain that in very simple terms, now let's say, okay, now this board has got very complex now. I don't know after an update. I'm using this board also for a long time. Okay, so if you look at this, right, the nominal rate of protection, I'll just explain this, right? So nominal rate of protectionism. Right? So let's say, right, now there is a Sri Lankan firm, let's say, producing t-shirts. There is a Sri Lankan firm producing t-shirts. On the same side, we are importing t-shirts as well. Okay, so let's say, right, the price of a t-shirt, right, so the imported one and the local one both is rupees 1,000. Okay, so government came and imposed a import duty, or you'll say a tariff, right? Let's say they imposed a tariff of 10% on the imported good. So now what happens? So what is the price of the imported good now? Price of the imported t-shirt. Earlier it was 1,000, right? Now they came and put a 10% tariff. Now how much will be the price of the imported t-shirt? It's simply 10%. An addition of 10% is how much? It will be 1,100. So now, right, what do you think the domestic guy would do, guys? Now, because of this importer, you know, how does it usually work, right? Because an import tariff comes in, now the domestic supplier also, he also increases his price, right? So the domestic person, he doesn't sell at 100 now, right? He doesn't, sorry, not, he doesn't sell at 1,000. Now, imported price is 1,001 now. He also increases his price. So the domestic supplier, right, he also, right, increases his price to 1,100. Now, because of that, that is what you call the nominal rate of protectionism. Now, because of this tariff, because of this 10% tariff that was imposed, our domestic supplier was also able to increase his price by 10%, right? 10% tariff was put on the imported t-shirt. So what happened? Imported t-shirt became 1,100. So our domestic guy can also now increase his price to 1,001. That is what you call. So that if you look at him also, he's also getting a 10% addition, right? He's also getting a 10% addition of his revenue. So then what happens? That's what you call the nominal rate of premium. So in the nominal rate of protectionism, guys, it does not, right? Does not take into account, right, the tariffs on inputs, right? It does not take into account the tariffs on input. It's simply a basic raw percentage. That's a nominal rate of. Then what is the effective rate of protectionism? The effective rate of protectionism goes a little bit more than this nominal rate of protection. In the effective rate of protectionism, you look at things like, right, you look at down smaller, yeah, right? So in the effective rate, right, in the effective rate of protectionism, here what happens? In the effective rate of protectionism, you look at, right, the change in the value added. Now, what is this change in value added? Oh, right? So you take into consideration the value added before and after the tariff. Now, for example, right, now let's say this same tariff story, right? Now, in addition to what has happened before, there is a tariff. Okay, I'll not go into examples and explain, guys, because not needed, right? I'll just explain the basic theory because yeah, they started to give a lot of numbers here on imported inputs and all, right? But simply remember the effective rate of protectionism. The effective rate of protectionism goes one step ahead. What is that step ahead? We are not simply looking at the value of the final good, right? We will also take into consideration the value of imported inputs also. Now, for example, when they put a 10% tariff on the t-shirt, maybe there would be a tariff on the cloth that comes also. So our domestic guy is, yes, preparing t-shirts, he's making t-shirts, but he might be getting cloth from abroad. That cloth also might have been taxed. So there can be problems like that, right? So an effective rate of protectionism takes into account all of that, right? So that is what you call a effective rate of protectionism. That's how you can distinguish the story. Just look at the answer, guys. There should be things that you can easily Google and learn as well. That's the basic story of this. Okay. Then is only the tariff input and final product. Yes, in a nominal listing, right? In a nominal rate of pricing, you only look at the final product, right? The tariff on the final product. That's all. But in a effective rate, yes, you consider the inputs, the tariff that is put on the input. You look into all of that. You simply look at the value added. So when you're looking at value added, the inputs, everything is considered. Okay, right. So then, okay, if you look at the fourth one, a very common question and a very easy question. Distinguish between flexible, fixed, and managed exchange rates. Because I'm not going to type answers for this, right? I'm hoping by now you all should be knowing. So what is a flexible exchange rate? Or in other words, a floating exchange rate? A flexible, now, how do you all write this question, guys? Write paragraphs, right? 3 separate paragraphs for the 3 separate exchange rate systems. So 2 marks each. So for a flexible exchange rate system, what do you say? This is where the exchange rate is determined by what case? Not by the government. A flexible exchange rate system or a floating exchange rate system is where the exchange rate is determined based on the market forces. In other words, the demand and supply for the currency, right? So based on the demand and supply for the currency only, the exchange rate is determined. So you can say the demand for the currency is created whenever, the country exports goods, people travel to the country, right? In other words, whenever they are earning some money. When is the currency supplied? The currency is supplied when they import, when they have to pay, when they repay loans, when they, let's say give foreign aids, then the currency is supplied. So simple thing like that. Then you can talk about a fixed exchange rate. What is a fixed exchange rate? A fixed exchange rate is where the exchange rate is set by the government or by, the central bank. Okay. So, and is not allowed to change unless the government or the central bank makes a change there. So that is what you call a fixed exchange rate. So in a fixed exchange rate, what should happen? For you to make sure that the exchange rate is fixed at a certain point, right? Because it's not simple like that, right? Government can't just come and say, okay, $1 180, that's it. No. Now, once they have fixed the exchange rate, guys, there is a lot of work that happens on the back, on behind the scenes, which we don't see, right? So if they fix it at 180, now let's say there is pressure for the exchange rate to depreciate to 190, or let's say there is pressure for the exchange rate to appreciate to 170. So all of this, the government has to manage by buying and selling foreign reserves, right? Now, for example, let's say the exchange rate is fixed at 180, but for some reason, there is pressure for it to depreciate to 190. Fixed exchange rate system, government will not allow it. So what should the government do? Government in that case, guys, they will, it's depreciating, no? So they will create an artificial demand for the Sri Lankan rupee. So they will sell foreign currency, buy, in other words, they'll supply foreign currency from their foreign reserves, they will sell off, and then they will buy. Okay, I'll explain this interesting story, right? If it's too complex for you all can leave it, right? If not, try to understand this. Okay, this can be a question that can come in this year's paper, but I will not explain the answer. I will explain the logic behind this. Okay, so give me a few minutes. Did you all realize that at one point, right? I'll explain the simple story. Okay, so okay, what type of an exchange rate system does Sri Lanka have? Sri Lanka has what type of an exchange rate system? As a what? A managed floating, right? What is a managed floating? A managed floating exchange rate system. This is what Sri Lanka has. In other words, yes, you can call that a dirty float. Okay. So what is this managed floating? A managed floating exchange rate system means, right, the exchange rate system will vary. but will vary within a certain range, right? So it will fluctuate within a certain range. They will not let it go beyond that or above that. Now let's take, right? If now I'm going to talk about the foreign reserve story of Sri Lanka, right? I don't remember numbers exactly, but y'all can Google and find out the numbers, right? So here, what happened in the past year, guys, right? In the past year, what can you tell about our exchange rate? What can you tell about our trade flows because of COVID and everything? What has happened to our trade, international trade and all of it? Our exports, our, tourism income, has it been favorable or unfavorable? What has happened? Trade flows have been unfavorably affected, right? So it has been obviously unfavorable, right? You couldn't export, no tourism, right? Sorry, my spellings are wrong. How do you spell this? Unfavorable. Is it wrong spelling? Okay, never mind. Don't mind. Okay, so it's unfavorably affected. So in this case, guys, what do you think happens for the exchange rate? Now, when we don't export, when there is no money coming in, there is a tendency for this exchange rate to appreciate or depreciate. Exchange rate. What is happening, guys? Please give me answers, because otherwise I'll just leave it. I'm just trying to teach you something addition. Yeah. There is a tendency for the exchange rate to depreciate, right? Because Corona, all of it, right? No money coming in the country. There is a tendency for it to depreciate. Now, because of this depreciation, right? Now, if you compare last year and this year, guys, right? If you look at the US dollar to the LKR exchange rate, hasn't depreciated so much, no, guys. Let's say last year it was around 180, 190. Now it's around 200. Just a small depreciation, right? But ideally, right? Ideally, because of this huge impact, guys, there should have been, right? There should have been a very huge depreciation, right? But what has the central bank done? They have managed their foreign reserves. They have bought, and so I'll explain that story, right? Because we have a managed floating. Ideally, because our country has gone really, really bad, right? These years because of COVID and everything. Okay. So Sri Lanka has a managed floating. Okay, that's what I started off with, right? So ideally, right, our exchange rate, $1 to LKR should have gone to around 250, 260. But has it gone there? No, right? Because why? We don't have a floating exchange rate, we have a managed floating. Yes, it will move here and there, but still the central bank will manage it. So what will the central bank do here, guys? In a situation where the exchange rate is depreciating, what they should do is they should create, right, an artificial demand, right? Artificial demand for the LKR. So how can they create artificial demand for the LKR, right? They have to sell US dollars. In other words, foreign currency, or let's say foreign reserves. They have to supply their foreign reserves, okay, and demand, or in other words, buy LKR. That is how they manage that. Is that story clear? Yes or no? Our exchange rate is keeping on depreciating and depreciating, right? So government will not let that happen. So government has to create an artificial demand. Yes, guys, they do it on purpose because we have a managed floating exchange rate. This is where the central bank is managing, guys. So exchange rate is depreciating, depreciating, and depreciating, right? But is the central bank allowing it? No. What are they doing? Whatever foreign reserves they have. Now, a country has foreign reserves now, guys. They are supplying those foreign reserves. They are selling it off and buying the Sri Lankan, right? Yes, they sell the foreign reserves in the foreign exchange market, right? So a country has foreign reserves, right? These foreign reserves are sold in the foreign exchange market and they demand for LKR. So trying to make the currency stronger. But that is not the story here, right? Okay, are you all okay with the fact that they are selling foreign reserves to make sure that the currency is stable? Is that part okay? Yes. Yes, if it's too advanced, if you're totally blank with the unit, then you're not going to get it. But if you're somewhere there, it should be okay, right? So they're selling foreign reserves. Now, exactly, I come to that point, right? Now, Guys, there is a limit that we can sell as well, no guys. Now we are selling and selling and selling. So what do you think is happening to the foreign reserves in Sri Lanka? What is happening to foreign reserves? The amount of foreign reserves we have, reserves of the country, is increasing or decreasing? It decreases, no? Now that is a problem that we have you all seen this in news? Should have been there, right? Recently, if you have been following, that the foreign reserves of Sri Lanka has gone into a very bad state, right? So foreign reserves of the country is decreasing. So this is the problem here, right? Now they can ask you to explain this story. How has the foreign reserves of the country decreased? I think it is a most probable question, right? Given that it's a very timely thing. So what has the government taken as measures to what solve this problem? So to solve this only, the government has come up with different restrictions, guys, right? So they first said, right, banning vehicle imports, right? Banning vehicle imports. Then what did they do? They banned, luxury items, right? Let's say phones. Let's say these things, right? So banning luxury item imports, right? And is a limit to hold foreign reserves? No, there is no limit, guys. You can have any amount of foreign reserves. But what is actually happening here? Let me see if I can find a maybe an article or something on the internet. Lanka. Yes. Foreign reserves. Hold on. Okay. Hold on. Yes, in central bank's annual report, you should be able to find it. Let me try to find something. Give me a second. Okay, there is an old article. This is not a very new one, though. This is a old article on managing Sri Lanka's foreign reserves. I don't think this is very this thing. Let me see. I'm looking at a news article. Let's see if I can find some news. Reserves. Okay, so there is one here. Trying that number down. Okay, let's see something if I can find. Okay, so I'll just give you a normal thing, right? So here, Sri Lanka's reserves down to 2.3 billion in October, right? So that is 2021, now last month. Okay, so small things like this, guys. Now, in order for these, right, they go into currency swaps, right? They go into different stuff. Those and all in detail you don't have to know, right? What is a currency swap to what everything? Those you don't have to know. But simple things, right? So see, Sri Lanka's foreign reserves were 2.3 billion US dollars by the end of October, down from 2.6 billion in this thing, right? So by the end of October, foreign currency reserves was 1,600 million, while the reserve position in the IMF was something like this. So it's broken down. So special drawing rights, they have given numbers, reserves in gold, right? So all of these numbers are there. Now, what I'm trying to prove to you here is, okay, that Sri Lanka, because of this COVID-19, because of everything, right? Just get the normal basic story. We are having a managed floating exchange rate. Central bank will not allow the exchange rate to depreciate a lot because only within a range. So what does the central bank have to do? They have to create an artificial demand for the rupee. How can they create artificial demand for the rupee? They will sell whatever foreign reserves they have. That means foreign reserve means foreign currency. Okay, so they will sell off their foreign currency. They will demand for LCAP. So the amount of foreign reserves and the foreign currency we have is also limited, no, guys. To what extent can you keep on selling, and selling, right? So what is happening? The foreign reserves in the country is falling. So in order to solve that foreign reserves, only they are coming up with different things. They're coming up with currency swaps. They are, banning vehicle imports. They are, banning the import of luxury items, right? So they're doing, non-essential goods, right? All of this they are banning. So you all can read on these, right? So this is what this. What was the result to increase the price of gas, cement, and other goods? That I don't think is a connection to this. I'm not very sure of the exact reason. That I'll find and let you know, but I don't think there is a direct connection here. Don't know. I'm not very sure. I've not gone into that detail and checked it. We'll see. Right. That is the basic story about this foreign reserves, guys. Now, what has now this can a probable question can come on what has happened to the foreign reserves, right? Another question could be what is the government doing to control the foreign reserves, right? To overcome this situation, Google and find out, right? Fast track people will do a session on that, on exactly what we can do. But that is that story. Okay. So whoever your central bank sells foreign reserves to whom? They sell foreign reserves in the foreign exchange market. So there is a foreign exchange market where you can sell the foreign US dollars by the LKR. Okay. Now, so remember that small story there. Okay. That's a managed floating, guys. That is how they manage it, right? It is based on demand and supply, but still the what government comes in to create an artificial demand, somehow try to keep it within that range. Okay. Right. So back to this. Okay. So flexible, you all know. Fixed, you all know. Now we just talked about a managed exchange rate in terms of a Sri Lankan thing. So I'm repeating, guys. This could be a highly probable question. The foreign reserve position of Sri Lanka. Okay. Right. So are we okay with this? Yes. So far, shape the 4 questions, problems, issues. Fine. Right. So then we'll get into the next one. This is the 2012, right? The 2012 A-level paper. No, it's 2012 A-level. Okay. So they start off with what are the major sources of competitiveness? This is one of the very basic questions you can ever ask. Major sources, so in other words, how come a country has a comparative advantage, right? So, the resource abundance, the quality, the climate, the political government policies, right? So different stuff, right? Very direct thing that would be there in whatever that you have. So sources of comparative advantage, or in other words, reasons for international trade, both are kind of the same thing. Okay. Then question number 2, what are the major accounts and items in the balance of payment? By now, I think you all should be knowing those, right? Major accounts, you have the current account, capital account, financial account. Under the current account, what you have the trade account, you have the service account, that is commonly known as the goods and service account. You have the primary income account, you have the secondary account. Capital account, you don't have to break it down, but inside the capital account, you need to know there's non-produced, non-financial assets, right? So things like leases, franchise agreements, copyrights, anything to do with intellectual property, capital transfers, all of that is in the capital account. Then in the financial account, you have portfolio investments, foreign direct investments, you have other reserve assets, financial derivatives. What did I miss? Portfolio, foreign direct, financial derivative, other reserve assets. I can't remember. I missed one of it. There is 5, right? So those small parts is what you will have to write, right? So that's question number 2. Very direct, guys. When they say what, you don't have to go explaining. You don't have to write paragraphs and paragraphs. Simply write in point form. If they say what, if they say list, if they say state, right? You write in point form. Don't go to write paragraphs and paragraphs. Not needed. Okay. So then, distinguish between a country's terms of trade and balance of trade. Hey, when they give you a question like this, right? Okay, so I'll okay. What is terms of trade? In terms of trade, guys, we only look at the price of exports and the price of imports, right? Okay, so a country's terms of trade is what? Your export price index divided by your import price index. So in a terms of trade, what do? We only look at the price. But in the balance of trade, it's not just the price. We are looking at the value, right? The value of exports and the value of imports. That is the difference there, right? So go through the answer and see, right? Balance of trade is a little bit more advanced than the terms of trade. Terms of trade is just looking at the price indices, right? Here, in the balance of trade, we're looking at the value of the export and the value of the import. You expand that story a little, you can write. Okay, then, okay, give me answers for this case. Question number 4. What is the role of WTO? What is WTO? World Trade Organization. So what is their role in international trade? Right? What do they do, guys? So they build membership, right? So they get countries together. They what? Promote multilateral trade. That means trade between countries. They implement and monitor trade agreements. They solve trade disputes, right? They formulate, international trade policies. Okay, they provide welfare to member countries, right? So simple things, guys. Now here also, you don't have to explain that. When they ask you what, right, you just state 4 points, right? You don't have to go and explain and do all that. If you really want to, under each point, maybe write 1 or 2 lines. That's all. Please don't go and write pages and pages. Not me. That. Okay. This is a very easy question. And then if you look at question number 5, right? Describe what is meant by a managed float. That is what I explained before as well. So what is a managed float, right? A managed floating exchange rate is a combination of both a floating and a fixed, where the exchange rate will be determined based on the demand and supply of the currency. However, what would happen? The government or the authority responsible for it will ensure that this exchange rate is floating within a certain range, right? So if it is going to cross that range, then only they will interfere. Now, just like Sri Lanka story. So if the currency is going to depreciate a lot, what will the government of Sri Lanka do? They will create an artificial demand. They will sell off their foreign reserves and they will do all of that. The same way, guys. Now, if, for example, if the exchange rate is going to appreciate, that also they will not let it, right? So in that case, what will happen? If the exchange rate there is pressure to appreciate, then right, they will supply LKR and buy foreign reserves. They will buy US dollars. So then our foreign reserve position is going to go up. So opposite of what I told before. That is what you call a managed floating exchange. Guys, these are very simple questions. Have ready-made answers and go for these, right? Practice these questions, have a proper answer for these, because these can be questions that come over and over again. Yes, they try to maintain, so not an equilibrium situation, they try to keep the exchange rate within that range. Okay, so let's say, okay, $1. Now let's say between 205 and 195. Between that range, they will try to keep it. Okay, so they will, if it's going to go more than 205, then they will create an artificial demand, they will sell. Yeah. Yes, they have determined range also. A managed float. It's not a fixed amount, right? A managed float means it varies within a certain range. Only when it tries to go above or below that range, then only the central bank will intervene. Between that range, it will go, no problem. Okay, right? That's 2012, an easy question, right? So nothing hard on that. So if we move on to 2013, then again, this is this, right? So if you look at the 2013 A-level paper, okay, so we have distinguish between absolute advantage and comparative advantage. Illustrate your answer giving numerical examples. Okay, this is one of the easiest questions you will ever find, right? So what is absolute advantage? Absolute advantage is where when one country can produce a good in a lesser cost of production, right? At a lesser cost compared to another country. How can they produce at lesser cost, right? So maybe using the same amount of inputs, whichever country can get the highest output has the absolute advantage. Or else the same output with lesser number of input, then also they have the absolute advantage. That is absolute advantage. What is comparative advantage? Comparative advantage is where one country can produce at a lower opportunity cost than another country. A lower opportunity cost than another country. That's comparative advantage. So they are telling you to illustrate your answer giving numerical examples. So what you can do, right, is now remember our normal MCQ questions that we have, right? You don't have to use both input, output, both those approaches not needed, guys, right? So a normal MCQ that you all get, right? So you draw that table, okay? So draw a table, right? So let's say, Sri Lanka, India, right? Put two goods, right? So let's say this is output data, right? And you explain your story, guys, right? So say this is okay. Let's say tea and cloth, right? Just give some names there, right? And put some numbers. Right? So put some numbers. Say Sri Lanka can, with 100 labor units, they can produce, let's say, this much of tea. They can produce this much of cloth. So based on this, this is the country that has the absolute advantage. This is the country that has the competitive advantage, right? So you can explain that, right? It's a very basic thing, just like how you get in your MCQs, right? Remember last, past couple of classes, we discussed those MCQs every year that there is an MCQ on that. Remember that table I showed you all, right? On the side we write who has the absolute advantage, who has the comparative advantage. That kind of an example is what you need to put and write. Okay, so simple thing, do that. Done. Then explain the economic factors which might determine the patterns of trade between countries. What do you think we have to write here, guys? A question like this. What do we write? Economic factors that determine the patterns of trade. What kind of thing can we write? Because here also they're talking about something like the comparative advantage, right? Because based on comparative advantage, only the patterns of trade and all of it is there, right? So you can write the sources of comparative advantage, but here what you do, you have to explain it, right? So one could be the availability of resources, the resource abundance. So you can say some countries have, better resources and stuff like that. So maybe they are the ones exporting that good to another country. Sometimes the climate, right? So now, for example, in Sri Lanka and stuff, we have a good climate in our hill country for tea, right? That could have been a pattern of trade, right? Maybe a differentiation, maybe the quality. Now, if you take, let's say, some European countries, the vehicles and stuff are of very great quality, right? If you take, let's say, the Mercedes Benz, let's say, things like the BMW, right? Quality. So maybe that's the reason. So you all know the normal sources of competitive advantage. No? That's the same thing, guys, right? So things like that. Okay. Okay, wait, let me see. Okay, now they're talking about the economic reasons. Hold on, I'll share the answer with you. 2013 answers. Okay, hold on. Question number 8. Okay, here. Okay. But ideally, guys, you have to explain here, since they have not what explain this here, right? The question is asking to explain. So these things, yes, factor abundance, economies of scale, right? Your productivity differences, your quality, your government policies, the location, right? Based on your location, your climate, right? So all of these, right? Small things like this, you will have to explain. So you can't just state it, because in the question they're asking you to explain the economic fact. Then this one, compare and contrast the global and regional approaches to reducing barriers to industry. Guys, what is a global and what is regional approach? I'll show you again with the answer itself, right? So look at this, right? Since World War II, now see they have given a good answer, right? So I'll go through this answer and I'll explain. Okay, they have a very detailed answer. So they say, since World War II, barriers to international trade have been reduced significantly, right? Have been reduced significantly. In reducing these barriers, countries have taken two approaches. So they have made trade negotiations on a global basis and formation of regional trading blocks. Now, what is the difference, guys? Trade negotiations on a global basis means throughout the entire world. Regional means within your close countries. Now, for example, if you take SAARC, right, the South Asian countries, right? So Sri Lanka, India, Pakistan, Maldives, Afghanistan, Nepal, Bhutan, that's a regional trading bloc, right? Within your thing. If you take NAFTA, right, the North American Free Trade Agreement, that is USA, Canada, and Mexico, within that region. Okay. So here we say, since World War II, 8 rounds of international trade negotiations have been conducted under this one, right? The GATT is an organization. So each of these rounds resulted in reduction in tariff rates. In Uruguay, round negotiations started in, these ones, right? These are direct copy and paste from the internet, okay? If you have read on the internet, it's directly there in the internet, right? So they have talked about this. Okay. So here you have, right, now he'd see it was more comprehensive than past agreements and covers trade in services and goods, related in property, that. See, so here they say, rather than relying entirely on global approach, many countries have formed regional trading blocks. That is what Sri Lanka has also done, right? Within your close people. See, they have agreed to reduce or eliminate trade barriers among themselves while maintaining barriers against countries outside. So look, NAFTA, European Union, SAPTA, right? All of these are there. So formation of regional trading agreements are relatively easy. It's not hard, no, guys, because it's within your region, no, right? Easy to form and easy to compare to global trade agreements, which may take many years to reach. It is easier for a small group of neighboring countries with similar concerns and cultures to agree on a market opening in a particular area than to reach agreements in a wider forum, such as the World Trade Organization. So, World Trade Organization and stuff, guys, they are looking at using global things, right? Trying to get the entire world into one form and trying to reduce barriers. That is what you call a global, right? But a regional approach is where these countries itself alone, they itself come together, they itself try to form something. That's a regional approach. Okay. So here we say they can also offer new approaches to rulemaking and so act as a stepping stone to global level agreements. See, regional agreements make it harder for countries outside the region to trade with those inside and may discourage further opening up of markets ultimately, limiting growth prospects for all. Moreover, broad-based multilateral agreements with more players and more sectors will offer greater potential for mutual gain and limited bilateral and regional deals. Now, to summarize, what does that basically mean? Okay, what is a global approach? What is a regional approach? Guys, a global approach is what is usually done by the World Trade Organization. What is this? What is the World Trade Organization doing? Right? Where they are trying to make sure the entire world or the entire globe, right, has free trade. It's like a global approach. But is it easy to do? No. It takes a lot of years, right? Trying to get agreements across countries, right? I know all of that is not easy. So because of that only they have had regional approaches. What is regional approach? Where countries nearby, right, in the same region, like SAARC, like NAFTA, right, like SAPTA, right, countries who are near to each other, let's say the European Union, they get in and within their region, they reduce the barriers. They come into different agreements. They reduce trade barriers. So no protectionism, no tariffs, right? You don't have to do any of that. But then, right, what is a bad side of this regional thing? Now, if you look at SAARC countries, right, the bad side is when it limits the market, right? When you are only, right, when you have got into an agreement between India, Pakistan, and let's say these countries only, right? Other countries will not like to buy from you, right? Because they know, okay, now it's like this, no, guys, it's like your, okay, think of this as a as your class, as your A-level class now in school, right? If you take a global approach, is where someone is trying to make you friendly with everyone, right? So let's say, okay, how many students, guys, do you have in class? 40, 30, 25? At my time, we had 25 in a class. You all have 50, right? Okay, so let's say 50 of you all, right? So 50 of you all in a classroom. Think of this as the countries. A global approach is where, right? Let's say someone, let's say the World Trade Organization, or let's say your teacher, right? He's trying to make all 50 of y'all friendly, right? Trying to make all 50 of y'all close to each other, right? Perfectly fine. Is that an easy thing to do? Will you be close with all 50 at the same level? No, right? It's not an easy thing to do. So even in your, right, even in your class, you have your separate clique, right, people that you vibe with usually, right, people that you can connect with. So a global approach is trying to do what? A global approach is trying to do, make sure all 50 of these people are friendly, right, that all are friendly and everything is perfectly fine. But yes, to some extent you can do, but it's not easy. Because of that only countries get together, like you all get together and you have your own friend gang, right? You have, like, like, let's say 5 to 6 friends from your own place. Maybe they live close by, maybe you all share the same vibe, right? You all have something there. So that is what you call a regional approach, right? Let's say five of you all, right? Five of you, you and your closest friends. So these five get together. That's a regional approach. But then what is the disadvantage of this regional approach? Now, when five of you all have got together, right? It's usually the five of you all who is sharing stuff, right? Let's say sharing a note or sharing food or gossiping or having a WhatsApp group. It's the five of you all, right? Will anyone else, right, like to come and, try to do stuff with you all? No, right? When five of you all are very close, right? Let's say five of you all are very close, you all are doing everything together, right? Sometimes some outsider, right? So maybe someone outside the five of you all, right? He might not really be encouraged to come and, share the food with you all. No, now, will he come and share? Okay, let's say a girl, right? Will that girl come and share her food with the five of you all? Or will that girl usually come and, they might, I'm not saying they might not, right? But rarely, will they come and share their food? Will they come and, five of you all here, this is my note. Will they give you the note? No, right? So that is what happens. So when you have regional approaches where countries get together, right, this might limit their scope. They might not be able to get in touch with other countries. Other countries might not be able to, might not like to get in touch with these people. That's the difference there. Got it? No? Global and regional. Global is where everyone is trying to get together. Regional, close by people getting together. No? Yes. Okay, that's the best I can do. You can Google and find out. Right? No international cooperation. There is international cooperation. Now, in global approaches, you try to make sure there is international cooperation where everyone tries to get together. In a regional one, you have international cooperation, but to some extent, only within your countries. Okay? Right. Then, okay, so then we come up with the fourth question. The fourth question is saying, what are the advantages and disadvantages of a flexible exchange rate system? So again, easy stuff, right? Now, these are directly there in whatever tute that you are studying. The advantages and the disadvantage. So I'll just share the screen inside without typing, right? So what type of advantages, right? One, the BOP automatically balances. Then countries don't have to hold official reserves. Now in a flexible exchange rate, now remember, in a managed floating and a fixed exchange rate, I told you, if the exchange rate is going to devalue or, revalue, appreciate or depreciate, what does the government do? Government has to, sell off their foreign reserves. They have to buy foreign reserves. They have to manage all of that. So to manage all of that, they have to keep a lot of foreign reserves with them. But in a floating exchange rate, that need is not there. So you don't have to hold foreign reserves. Then correctly valued exchange rates are necessary, right? So to make resource allocation. Now here, in a flexible exchange rate, the exchange will not be either overvalued or undervalued, right? It will show the correct value. That's an advantage. Then if you look at disadvantages, right? So what happens? It increases uncertainty because every time the exchange rate is changing, going up, coming down, going up, coming down. Every time there is a change, uncertainty. Then there could be speculation. What is speculation? Where people, they anticipate exchange rate to go up, so they buy it now. They sell the exchange rate later. This is not really good, right? Speculation. And then what here in floating exchange rate, no such discipline exists to make country reduce inflation rate. Now, I'm not going to explain this in very depth, but they know, you all know, right? In a country like Sri Lanka, exchange rate is always depreciating. So if you look at exporters, it is actually favorable for them, right? Exchange rate depreciating is favorable for the exporters. They like it. So there is no motivation for them to, try to be more cost friendly, try to reduce their cost and be competitive. No, they are simply automatically becoming competitive because our Sri Lankan exchange rate is depreciating. That is why you are saying there's no such discipline that is there. I would have explained that in detail in the revision class. If you have forgotten, revision people, the recording should be there. Okay, that is that story. Yeah. Then, okay, this one. Examine the recent trends in export earnings and import spending. What factors have contributed to the large trade deficit? Guys, when they say recent trends, you have to give the recent year numbers. Right? So look at what they have done over here. So here, this is a 2013 paper, right? So in a 2013 paper, what they have done, they have gone, yes, I'll come to this point, right? So they have talked about this one, see 2008, 9, 10, 11, and 12. So they have given, now you don't have to have all these years. So in your paper, if they ask you, right, in the year, let's say 2021 A-level paper, ideally, right, see which years they have given, maybe the latest 3 years, maybe 2018, 19, and 2020. You have to know some numbers, right, as a percentage of GDP or something. You don't have to know the value in billions, guys. This is very hard to explain, no? Really hard to remember, right? At least as a percentage of GDP, you all should know the import and export percentage, so you can see. And then what are the reasons, right? So if you look at Sri Lanka, what are the reasons these days? Maybe high things that you pay for petroleum, right? You know, different stuff. So you can find those directly in the central bank report, guys. Those are directly there. So what has happened to this thing? So I'll show you. Okay. So our okay. Hey, this is where you have to, go through the central bank report, guys. If you're not going to go to the central bank report, then there is a problem, right? So you have see, okay, so this, for example, external trade policy. So what has the government done, right? So here the government continue to focus on greater trade integration and enhancement of institutional support, export promotion. Here continue to benefit from the GSP agreement. So what is the GSP agreement? What is happening, right? Could be questions in your paper. Then here, negotiations in related new trade agreements. So Sri Lanka has looked at new trade agreements, right? So here you have your ECTA, right? So economic and technology cooperation agreement, right? So with countries like Thailand, they have tried to get into these things, right? Then you have here measures were taken to further enhance the utilization of existing bilateral trade agreements. So what are the other trade agreements that we have? The India-Sri Lanka trade agreement, trying to get the most out of that. Those are things that Sri Lanka has done here. Sri Lanka's multilateral trade engagements with the WTO continued along with implementation of the World Trade Facilitation Agreement. So read and see, guys. These are things that has to come from you all, right? So read, find out, right? So what they have taken here, measures were taken by the government to implement trade proposals for the budget while restricting the importation of selected items. So what and what did they restrict importing? Go and see, right? Do we need to refer the 2020 or the 2019? Refer both, guys. Go through both, right? So have a good understanding about both. Then you all will have this thing. See export performance. So what has happened, right? So what has happened to exports? Why has it now? They're asking, in the paper, in the 2013 paper, the question is, why has this fallen, right? Why has there been a deficit? So read and see, guys. Export performance directly given in the central bank report. These have to come from you, right? So what has happened, right? So they are saying it has marginally increased, right? So what are the reasons, right? So you can say in earnings from industrial exports, right, has maybe increased a little. Then you can say, I don't know, right? Agricultural exports has kind of deteriorated, right? It has fallen. So then talk about the imports. What has happened on import expenditure? Likewise, you can find the reasons, guys. Now, those kind of trend questions is where you definitely need to know values. You have to have read the central bank report. You need to know your thing. Now, you all do have, guys, you all do have 2 to 3 months now, right? So, if you all have not done it yet, it's high time that you do it now, right? So, trust me, guys, central bank report, one chapter to read, find out what has happened, right? Within 3-4 hours, you can do that. So, in one day, you can do that, guys. So take the central bank report, let's say 2019, 2020, take the external chapter, right? The external this thing. This is the chapter number. Let me give you the chapter number. Okay, so chapter number of the central bank report is this. You can have a physical one or even this one, right? Here, external sector development, chapter number 5. That's the chapter that you have relating to international trade. Open that chapter, get the 2019, get the 2020, right? If you all want, it's little pages. Maybe you can get a printout of it also if you all really want to, right? So maybe highlight the important things, write down the things on a piece of paper, make a short note, right? See what has happened, what are the main items, what has the government done, right? That is how you study, guys. Studying is not about memorizing things, right? So that interest has to come from you all. If you all are not interested to, read a thing, find out new stuff, then there is nothing that I can do as well. So take that thing, right? So go. So see, you look at the overview. Overview gives you an entire summary of what has happened, right? What has happened to imports, what has happened to exports, what has happened to the BOP, right? Everything. That's the overview. Then you have your, balance of payment, right? So look at the things here, right? trade account, service account, primary account. You don't have to remember these numbers, guys, but at least know what we have a deficit in. What do we have a surplus in? See, trade account is a deficit. Service account, we have a very small surplus. Primary income is a deficit. Secondary income, we have a surplus. Overall current account, right? So where is the current account here? Current account is a deficit in Sri Lanka. Then capital account. What is capital account? We have a small surplus, not much of things, right? Then look at the financial account. Look at, see, direct investments. What is happening for direct investments, right? What is happening for portfolio investments? What is happening for financial derivatives, other investment, right? So these things have to come from you all, guys, right? Then look as a percentage, our trade balance as GDP. What are the numbers? Goods and service, current account, current and capital account, right? So here, what has happened because of COVID-19? All of these are there, guys. So that's up to you. Yeah, this is like a summary, right? What has happened to the here? What has happened to the exchange rate, right? So LKR, December 2017, it was around 152, right? January 2019, it's around 182. December 2019, 181. So what has happened here, right? What are these things? Look at our export things. So these have to come from you all, right? You all have to read, right? So trust me, guys, if you all can make some time now, I don't think you're that caught up these days now, right? So your schedule, I think, is getting a little lower, right? Even on my economics classes also, we don't have much classes now, right? It's just the fast track classes, the end of the mock exam that is going. So eventually classes will reduce a little. You all will find some free time. If you all don't have time, guys, it's about, waking up early. That's how you make time. If you all can't do that, then don't expect you all to do that great, right? So if you really want to do that great and be among the top in the island and do all of that, then that effort needs to come from you, right? Because if that effort is not coming, then yes, that's the difference between someone who just passes and someone who passes really well. So I'm telling you what I would have done, and I'm telling you, you have the time, you can look at that, right? So see about the tourism, how has the Easter Sunday attacks affected tourism, right? What has happened to the official reserves? So they're saying here the official reserves have increased, right, on this thing. So in 20, now this is a 2019 central bank report, guys, right? So in the 2020 central bank report, this actually fell. Here, see, if we had by the year 2018, we had official reserves of 6.9 billion US dollars. In 2019, we had 7.6. So our actual official reserves have increased, right? But what happened here? Remember, I showed you in the this thing, right? Where is that? Yeah, in this thing, see, by 2020, right? The one that was it is only 2.3 billion. So look at the numbers. Now, these are numbers that you all can compare and see. 2018, 6.9 billion. 2019, it went to 7.3. But 2020, October, it came down to a 2.3 billion. So look at how much of a problem we have in 2020. Those things you can read and find out, guys. That has to come from you all, right? So going through and, yeah, there is no big difference. So gross official reserve, inside that you have your foreign reserves also. So no problem there, right? So under your gross official reserves, you have whatever reserve that the central bank has, that whatever the reserves that this thing has, kind of the same thing. Not very same thing, but somewhat the same. Okay. So those things has to come from you all. Yeah. That's what I can say. It's up to you all if you all really want to do it or not. Okay, right. So that is how you answer a recent trend question. And if you get a recent trend question, you have to know values, guys. You can't memorize an answer that we did previously and go and write. It will not work that way. Okay. Can we expect questions on the 2022 budget? No. You all will not get questions on 2022 budget. Don't worry. Okay. Right. That is 2013. 2013 paper is a good paper, right? Usually, what you are doing, 2013 is usually the harder paper. It's a good paper. Okay. Right. Then getting into this. Okay. Right. This is the 2014. Give me 1 second as well. This is the 2014 A level paper. Hold on. Okay. So this one is okay. Can you all do the first one if you all have not done it and give me an answer? Simply finding comparative advantage. I think we have done so many questions like this. We've done it over and over and over again. Okay, give me answers for opportunity cost. Right? Which country should specialize in which good? Explain. Right? So how do you find which country should specialize in which good based on their opportunity costs? Right? So, okay, tell me opportunity cost of China to produce machines. What is their opportunity cost? Opportunity cost of China to produce machines, right? It's 150 divided by 3, it's 3 units, right? 3. This one, it's 1 divided by 3, then 0.3. Yeah, 0.3 units of machines. Then Sri Lanka for machines, opportunity cost is 5. Sri Lanka for garments, opportunity cost is 0.2. Okay, so those numbers I'm hoping by now you all can find. Now, those are not rocket science. Then look at machines. Who has the low opportunity cost, Sri Lanka or China? China. Garments, who has the low opportunity cost? Sri Lanka. Right? So then which country should specialize in which could explain? So your explanation has to be your calculation, right? So you should say, you know, which country specializes in which good is what found out through by finding the comparative advantage. Comparative advantage is where whichever country who has low opportunity cost, and that you find the opportunity cost, show your workings, right? Then say, okay, so in Sri Lanka, the opportunity for machinery, or the opportunity cost of producing a machine in China is 3 garments, but in Sri Lanka it's 5 garments. Therefore, China has the comparative advantage, meaning they have to specialize in that good. And again, if you take garments in China, the opportunity cost is 0.3 machines. In Sri Lanka, it's 0.2 machines. So Sri Lanka has the low opportunity cost in producing garments. Therefore, Sri Lanka has to go and produce garments. So likewise, guys, you all can come up with your points and you all can explain the story. Simple thing, right? 5 marks is like a bonus that you all will ever get for this. Then, if you look at this, what is the terms of trade ratio between the two countries after specialization? So how do you find this, guys? The terms of trade ratio, the internal and the external, right? How do you find this? Simple thing, no? Hold on, let me go back to my listing. Okay, right? Okay, so if you take this one, right? If you take machinery, okay, machinery, who is what exporting machines now? Yes, you can write both internal. Internal one is not needed. Also, maybe the external one you can expect. Who is exporting after specialization? So ideally external one. Yeah. Who is exporting machines? China. So what is the opportunity cost of China for a machine? It's 3 units of garment. So if they want to export it, will they want more than 3 or less than 3? In their country, the price is 3. If they are going to export it, they will want more than 3, right? So you can say, right, for a unit of machine, okay, so for a unit of machine, right, China would require more than 3 garments, while how much will Sri Lanka be willing to pay? While Sri Lanka will be willing to pay how much? 5, less than 5, more than 5. Willing to pay, be very careful there, right? Less than 5 garments per unit of machine, right? So something like that, guys. So that is for machinery. So same thing you can write for garments, and then if you want, you can put it as an equation and show this greater than this, less than this, right? You can do that. So now for garments, what happens? Sri Lanka is specializing, so Sri Lanka would expect more than 0.2 machines per unit of garment, and less than, China would expect to pay less than 0.3 units of machinery per unit of garment. So that I'm hoping you all should be able to figure that out. Is that okay? Yes. Can we do that terms of trade ratio also? No problem, right? 5 marks is a little too much for this question. Right? So those are that. Okay. Then, okay. Question number 3. What are the tariff and non-tariff barriers that limit free trade? What are the types of barriers? Why am I highlighting that? What can you say? Tariffs and non-tariff barriers. Okay, so trade embargoes. Okay, fine. There's something wrong with this board. Okay, I'm doing that. Okay. Customs rules, regulations. Okay, I'll just share the answer itself rather than typing. Give me a second. 2014. Hold on. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So here, if you look at tariff barriers, guys, that is simple. There is nothing really right there. You have export tariffs and import tariffs, and export tariffs also is not a big thing, right? Non-tariff barriers is what is important, right? So you have import bans, you have licenses, voluntary export restrictions, you have quotas. Where is quota? Quota is missing, right? So all of these, any of these, right? You don't have to write all of these, right? So around 3 of this, 3 to 4 of this is enough. So they're only giving you 3 marks now, guys. So, right, import bans, prevention of dumping, trade agreements, exchange rate controls, right, regional economic corporations, right. So all of these are non-tariff barriers that they come. Okay. Cartels is a situation where countries get together, right? A cartel is like no, that usually happens in oligopolies, right? So in oligopoly, we study something called a cartel, right? We don't go into very deep in your syllabus, but cartels are where they get together and they work against someone, right? Now, for example, Dialog and Mobitel getting together, forming a cartel, and deciding prices and doing all of that. So countries can also do that, right? They also can get together, do something to another country. Right? Yes. Sibetco, yes, I think they also did something. No, I'm not very sure. Okay. Then again, explain why countries impose barriers to free trade. That's a question that we have done before. Right? So why do they impose barriers, or why do they have protectionism? So look, same answers are there: to protect infant industries, to increase employment, minimize BOP problems, right? Avoid dumping, right? So maximize the benefit from local resources, generate income for the government, right? Protect strategically important industries, right? So all of that. Increase GDP, not really, but increase utilization of resources, yes, you can say that. Okay. So all of these are reasons for what? Reasons for imposing trade barriers. So that thing is that. That is that. Done. Okay, are we fine now? This paper is actually very easy. So are we okay with the 2014 paper? That's a very easy paper now. Yeah, 13 was a little hard, 14 is a very easy paper. So likewise it happens, guys. So if one paper is hard, usually the next paper is somewhat easy. Okay, right. Do you want a small break or are we fine? It's 2015. Do you want a 5-minute break to walk around? Yes, no? Okay. If you do, I do 2015, then the paper is over. Sorry. No, yes. Okay, I'll go with your words. If you're silent, then I can continue. No problem. Okay, I have 2 words for yes, 2 words for no. Okay, I have 3 for yes, 3 for no. How do I do? Okay. Okay, I have 4, 5 for yes. Okay. So I'll give you like a 5-minute break, walk around it. It's 11:19. I'll give you a break until it's 11:25. Right. So walk around, right? See if you can eat anything. Not your breakfast break. Go and eat. I wanted to do all the papers, but then I don't think we will have the energy to do all of that. So we'll break into 2 and do, no problem. So I will do 15 and probably 16 and then wrap things up for today. From next class, we do 17, 18, 19, 20, and we will finish off unit number 9 and 10. So take a break till, take a 5-minute break, right? So until 11:25, and then come back. 2015 is a good paper. These questions, these calculations are important. Okay, so come at 11:25. Okay, right. Guessing that you're back. Is it true that the examiners are resetting the paper? I'm not very sure, but usually the exam paper can only be is usually set 3 months before the thing, because if it is set long before and then there is a problem of it can be leaked, and there is a small confidentiality issue there, right? So usually the exam paper is set and sealed 3 months before the day of the exam, right? So by somewhere around 3 months. So now, for example, let's say they set the paper somewhere around in May, then obviously they would have remade the paper. So if you all are doing it in thinking, let's say they set it in May for you all to do it in August, but now since you are doing it in February, they would have remade the paper for somewhere around, maybe these days they must be making and they must be finalizing it. So they will do changes. It will not be the same paper that was that will be set. Usually that's how it works. I'm not very sure exactly how it would have worked this year, but that's the story. Usually 3 months is the period that they usually keep a paper for. Okay, right. Okay, so 2015 A levels. Okay, so they start off with the same questions, guys, which we have discussed before as well. Okay, so easy things. Hold on. Okay, right. The benefits that countries derive from international trade, guys. You all know the usual benefits. You can get good quality cheap products. You can export your excess, right? You can form good what relationships with other countries, right? So different things, basic stuff. But other benefits you don't have to explain. You simply have to state. Then main economic arguments for trade protection. Now, this is the third time that we are doing that, so I'm skipping that. Okay. The third question again, factors that determine a country's international competitiveness. Again, sources of comparative advantage, your location, your climate, your availability of resources, your technology, right? Your government policies, right? Again, same thing. So the first three, guys, you don't have to explain. These are same things that have been repeated over and over again in papers. Then this one, guys. Now this is where I would want to highlight a little, right? On this calculation, right? So in case you all get this calculation, how do you all work this around, or what do you all do over here, right? So always remember, guys, in this type of a calculation, it's always, right? How do you find your balance? It's your credit minus your debit, not debit minus credit. Please don't do that. Now, for example, if they ask you, right? Okay, we'll just look at this. You have merchandise goods, compensation of employees, financial services, dividends, air transport, government transfers, sea transport, interest income, worker remittances, travel, telecommunication, non-monetary gold. Okay. So if you take balance of trade, guys, what is balance of trade? Right now, for some reason, whatever I write is getting on top. Okay. Right? Yes, I gave the same thing with different values. Okay, balance of trade. Yes, how do you get balance of trade, right? So balance of trade is simply your export of goods, that is your credit balance minus your debit balance. But is that it? There is another small part over here that we have to take into consideration, right? So it's 800 minus 1002. Is that it? Remember, right? In the trade account, I also told you have to take into consideration non-monetary gold, right? What is non-monetary gold? Non-monetary gold is like the jewelry, like those stuff, right? You have to take those also. So this value also has to be taken into consideration. So when you're finding the balance of trade, so how do you get? So balance of trade credits, you have 800 minus 1001, so you have a minus 400 plus 5 minus 55 is a minus 50. So the minus 50. So you have balance of trade, you will get a minus 450. Guys, when you're writing, write the equation and write everything, okay, in detail. So then balance of goods and services. So this is the balance of goods account, right? Balance of trade means your balance of goods account. So look at your services. What kind of things do you have over here? So financial services is a service. Air transport is a service. If you take sea transport, it's a service. Worker remittances, interest income, no. Travel is a service. Telecommunication is a service. So all what you have to do is credit minus debit. So here financial services 25 minus 30. So you get a minus 5. Air transport 100 minus 60. You get a plus 40, right? Sea transport 180 minus 150. You get a plus 30. Okay, in case my calculations are wrong, let me know. Travel 140 minus 100, a plus 40. Telecommunication 75 minus a 30. That means a plus 45. So you get the service account balance. Guys, how much is service account? 45 minus 5 is 40, 40, 120, 150, right? So service account is a 150, but they are not asking you only for service account, they're asking you for goods and service account. So plus 150 minus the 450, you get how much? A minus 300. That is your balance of this. Then they ask you for primary income. So primary income, what do we do? Under primary income, you will have compensation of, now this, what is what? Rent, wages, interest, profits, right? So compensation of employees is wages. Dividends is coming. Interest income comes. Telecommunication, worker remittances, no. Worker remittances doesn't come. Yeah, so these things. So 5 minus 10 is a minus 5. Dividends 10 minus 70 is a minus 60. Then if you take interest income, 0 minus 35 is a minus 35. So you add all this, you get minus 100. Yeah, that's your primary income balance. Then your secondary income. So for secondary income, you will take worker remittances and government. Guys, do you take government transfers? Yes or no? Is government transfers taken into account? Yes or no? In secondary income, do we take government transfers or we do not take government transfers? Yes, no? We take. That's fine, right? So unless it is a official, capital transfer, then it will go in the capital account. But if they just say government transfers, it's fine, you can take. Okay, right. So then how much is the balance there for the secondary income account? 285 minus 50 is a 235, right? 15 minus a 0 is a 50. So you get 250. So that is a basic calculation. Means are you all okay with the parts there, right? Can figure that out? Shape. Okay, that's that. Okay, then the fifth one. Under a floating exchange rate, explain how the following domestic factors can affect the exchange rate. An increase in real GDP. Guys, if real GDP increases, what happens? What happens to your exchange rate? Guys, if real GDP increases, you can argue that your imports increase, right? If your imports increase, what happens? Right? There is a monetary outflow. Money goes out. As a result, what happens to your exchange rate? Your exchange rate depreciates. Then if there is a decrease in inflation, your exports will increase because your exports are cheap and your imports will fall. Why? Because people will buy from your country, because in your country inflation is low, it's cheap. So imports will fall, meaning exports are increasing, mean there is a huge monetary inflow to the country. Imports are falling, that means no monetary outflow. So what happens here? The exchange rate appreciates. So that story you all can explain, and you can simple story. That's 2015. Okay. Questions, problems, issues, guys? Abhishek? Okay. Right. That's that. Then we'll move on to the next one. Hold on. B, decrease inflation rate, your exchange rate will appreciate, because when your inflation rate goes down, what happens? Your exports are cheaper, so exports will increase. Imports, yes, exchange rate will appreciate. A decrease in inflation. If there's an increase in inflation, not the other way around. Okay. Okay. Then we'll do 2016. Yes, you might get a question from undervalued overvalued. how imports decline. Imports decline because when your inflation rate is low, right? Now think, in your country, goods are cheap. So where will you buy from? Will you buy it from abroad or will you buy it from here? You buy from here, no? You buy from Sri Lanka itself. So you're not buying from abroad. You're not importing from abroad. So your imports are going down. Got it? Yes, no? And there's a decline. Okay, that's it. Okay. Then 2060. So we'll do this and we'll wrap things up. We'll do the other papers probably the next class. Okay. Down. 2016 A levels. 16 is usually a good paper. Okay. They start off with this guy. Now these things I'm not going to explain again, right? We looked into this. Distinguish between comparative and absolute advantage. So write it. Last time there was a question with a numerical example also, but here they're just asking you to listen. Okay, now this is a question that is connected to that year, guys, right? So reasons for the slow growth of earnings from agricultural exports in the recent years. So maybe those recent years, 16, 15, 14, there would have been a problem with the agricultural sector. That is why that question came. So, but in general, you can give, right? In general, you can give reasons. Why is our agricultural sector earnings low? One, we are very labor intensive, right? So because of that, maybe our, now if you like Sri Lankan tea, it's all labor intensive, right? We don't have machines to pluck tea, right? It's all people, higher cost of production. So maybe prices are higher. And then our agriculture sector exports are not diversified also. We have very limited tea, rubber, that's the things that we have, right? But maybe that's the reason why it's maybe other countries, okay, maybe it's natural disasters, maybe landslides, maybe floods, right? Because of that, our export is, we have not been able to get much of output, right? Much of crops. Maybe other countries, like let's say countries like China, maybe they were able to produce at a lower rate. China also has tea, guys. Maybe they were able to produce tea at a lower rate. That is why our exports have fallen. Yes, maybe low land productivity, right? On our land, that we have keep on growing and growing and growing the same thing, right? Maybe that has fallen. So yes, the demand for the Sri Lankan tea or the Sri Lankan rubber would have fallen. So you can give those reasons like that, guys. Now, in case, yes, you can write lack of investments also if there is a story. So maybe there's lack of investments into the agricultural export sector. So those things are there. Okay. Then question number 3, mention the regional and bilateral trade agreements of Sri Lanka at present. What is regional, guys? Regional means with many countries in your region. Multilateral, another word. Okay. So regional, you can say SAARC, you can say SAPTA, you can say different. Bilateral, between two countries, you have India, Sri Lanka, you have India, Pakistan, you have sorry, not India, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, India, and you also have a Sri Lanka, Singapore trade agreement also. That's bilateral between two countries. Okay. Then, okay, these stuff, double entry, I think I've done over and over and over again, right? How do you record the following transactions? Okay, how do you record the following transactions in the balance of payments in Sri Lanka using double entry principle? So they say a Chinese investor buys stock worth 10 million at the Colombo Stock Exchange. Guys, when a Chinese investor buys stock, where does it go? What? Okay, first of all, are we getting money or are we paying money? Sri Lanka is getting money. So what have I told you all? If you are getting money, where do you go and put it? Always first think of that, right? You're getting money, financial account where? Financial account, reserve assets, you have currency and deposits, right? So you say debit, financial, right? Financial account, on the other reserves you have currency, but you don't have to do all of that. Just say financial account, currency and deposits is debited. So then, guys, you can put the number also here because they have given a number here, no? So you can say 10 million. Where do you think the credit entry goes here? Put the number also if you want to. Okay. Yes, buying stock. Where is that? Shares and all. Where do you put shares and stuff? Portfolio investments. No, so where is portfolio investment? Because here stocks means investments are not the physical stock. It means shares. Huh? They're buying from the Colombo Stock Exchange. No? Now, so you credit financial account. Right? So financial account. Where? not currency and deposits, portfolio investments, right? So this, okay, that's what I do. Okay, then second one, a housemaid work in Sri Lanka sends $500 to her parents in Sri Lanka. Are we getting money or are we paying money? Sri Lanka is getting, no, someone working abroad is sending the money. So what do we do then? Debit financial account, currency and deposits. So where does this housemaid working in Middle East money that they are sending goes under? Worker remittances, no? Secondary income, worker remittances. So where does it go? So current account, secondary income. So if you want, you can say worker remittances also. That's the secondary income. Done. Then third one, a Sri Lankan bank receives 40 million by selling bonds in the foreign financial market. Where do you go with this? Okay, first Sri Lanka is getting money, you're paying money. Sri Lanka bank receives, we are getting. So again, debit financial account, currency and deposits. Then this one, a bank is getting by selling bonds. Yes, bonds, shares, where do these go? Capital or portfolio investment? Where are you going to put this? Good question. Where will this go? Think and tell me, guys. Where is the credit entry going? Portfolio or capital? Capital account is usually capital transfers and all of it. Ideally, it has to go to portfolio. Can you just check the answer also and let me confirm? Should be portfolio. Anyone has the answer? Bonds, not a capital transfer. No. Has to be portfolio investments, but then there are two answers, two questions, the same thing. Unlikely they will. Is it a copyright? No, I'm talking about C, guys. Non-produced, non-financial. This is now a bond is not non-produced, non-financial, and a bond is non-produced financial. Bonds, shares, right? Those are financial assets. It has to go under portfolio. Just recheck the answer and let me know. Should be portfolio. The only doubt I have, because even the first one is the same thing. The first answer and the third answer is the same thing. Usually they don't give the same answer. Is it portfolio? Okay, then maybe yes. Okay, right. So remember, guys, shares, bonds, treasury bills, treasury bonds, sovereign bonds, right? Whatever bonds, shares, right? Portfolio investments, financial assets. In the capital account, what do you have? Copyrights, leases, capital transfers. Non-produced, non-financial is in the capital account, right? Now, bonds and stuff, non-produced, but they are financial, no? No, one is not a direct investment, guys. Direct investment is, let's say, a Chinese investor starts, let's say, the port city, or they come and let's say they start a factory. Then it's direct investment. If they are buying shares, if they are buying bonds, if they're doing that, then it's a portfolio investment. Okay. So here also same story. Financial account, portfolio investments. Support portfolio. So maybe they would have given this to confuse you all, because 1 and 3 has the same answer. Then, okay, D, a Sri Lankan company obtains the copyright of a best-selling book in the world for 5,000 from an American publisher, translate and sell it in Sri Lanka. Okay, are we getting money or are we paying money? Sri Lanka is obtaining the copyright from an American person. Means we have to pay, no? We have to pay that American firm. So then what happens? You credit, right? Financial account, currency and debt. So where do copyright go on? Copyright. Capital account, or non-produced, non-financial assets. So under capital account, right? So you go and debit the capital account. So you don't, capital account, guys, you don't have to find a sub account and all. You can just say debit capital account. That's fine. Okay, so if you want, you can say copyrights. Right? So there is no sub account, but you can just say copyrights. Right? Okay, right. That is that story. Is that fine? Yes. Shape. These are easy. If you get double entries like this is the easiest question that you can ever get. Right? Even on MCQs or even on essay question. Because that's that part there. Done. Then part 5. Draw an appropriate diagram to show the determination of the external value of Sri Lankan rupee in terms of US dollars under a floating exchange rate system. Explain why the demand curve is sloping, downward sloping, and the supply curve is upward sloping in the foreign exchange in terms of US dollars. Okay, so here guys, you have to draw a diagram. What diagram do you draw? Okay, so they're telling you to draw okay, I'll draw it in black. Okay, so draw this. Hold on. Okay, so you have the, let's say we'll go with the diagram. So give me an external value of Sri Lankan rupee in terms of US dollars. Okay, first of all, guys, do we draw the what do I say? Do we draw the direct quotation or the indirect quotation? Which one do we have to draw? What do you all think? Or is both all right? Direct quotation, indirect quotation, or is both okay shape? Which one do we have to draw? Both? Okay, you can draw both also. No problem. Which one do you draw? Direct one, indirect one, both. Right? You can either draw both, or ideally it has to be the direct quotation one. Why the direct quotation? I will explain. Right here they are saying, okay, so in this part they are saying, but look at this, the value of the Sri Lankan rupee in terms of US dollars. 1 rupee, how in terms of US dollars? So domestic currency in terms of foreign currency is the direct quotation. Sorry, not the direct, guys. It's the indirect quotation, right? Sorry if I said direct before, right? You have to draw the indirect quotation, or you have to draw both, right? So they are asking you the value of the extra Sri Lankan rupee in terms of US dollars. So 1 Sri Lankan rupee equals how much? So let's say, for example, 1 Sri Lankan rupee is equal to 0. Let's say 0.01 US dollars. So see, the external value of Sri Lankan rupee in terms of dollar, not the value of the dollar in terms of rupee. If they say value of the dollar in terms of rupees, then you draw the direct quotation. So ideally, it has to be the indirect quotation that you draw here. But if you are not sure which one to draw, you draw both, right? Don't take the risk of drawing just one, because they can't mark you wrong. If you draw both, fine. At least one part is there. Nothing is wrong there. Right? You can draw both and show. So appropriate diagram showing this. So then why does the demand curve slope downward, guys? Now this is the demand for LKR, right? So demand for LKR, and you have the supply of LKR. Why is it downward sloping and why is this upward slope? When the rupee value decreases in terms of US dollar, it's sloped downwards. Okay, but why? It's like this, right? I'll give you a very simple story. Okay, when the rupee value goes down, right? When the rupee depreciates, let's say 1 US dollar earlier was this, now it depreciated. What happens to your exports when the rupee becomes cheaper? Answer. So when the value of rupee becomes cheaper, guys, more rupees will be demanded because your exports increase and all of that goes up. Right? Let's say this becomes 0.08, right? So when the rupee value goes down, right, what happens? Your exports are cheaper, right? Now this is a depreciation of the exchange rate, depreciation of Sri Lankan rupee. So rupee value going down, more rupees will be demanded. Why? It's cheaper. You can buy things for cheap. On the same side, right? Let's say if the rupee appreciates, right? Let's say it goes to 0. I don't know, 0.12, right? It appreciated. So then this will go down. The demand for the LKR will go down. Why? Because it's expensive to export and stuff now, right? On the same side, if you look at this, hold on, look at the supply aspect of it. Now, if the value of the rupee appreciates, right? If the rupee appreciates, what happens? Okay. If the rupee depreciates and rupee appreciates, how does this work? Shall I? Okay. I don't have an answer to share and explain. Hold on. Let me see if I have an answer to share. 2016. No, I don't have an answer. How does this work, guys? Okay. I have a physical copy. I'll read the answer. Let's see if you understand. 2000. Okay. Here. Right. Okay. So this says the demand curve for Sri Lankan rupee in the foreign exchange market represents the demand for exports and the inflows of foreign capital. So the demand curve represents what? The demand for your exports and your foreign capital. When the rupee becomes cheaper, so value of rupee goes down, then what happens? The demand for exports increase, right? So meaning this quantity has increased. On the same side, when this depreciates, okay, now what happens? Okay, now when this depreciates, the demand for exports, when it appreciates, the demand for exports falls. Look at the supply side of it. Here we say the supply of the Sri Lankan rupee in the foreign exchange market represents what? The demand for imports. Now, when the rupee becomes cheaper in terms of dollars, right? In terms of dollars or depreciates, imports will be expensive, right? And what happens? And therefore, the supply will fall. Is okay. I'll type it if you did not understand. Hold on. Why is this demand curve sloping downwards and upwards? Okay. Listen very carefully. I'll explain the story. Okay. So last question and we're done. Hold on. Okay. I'll send a picture of the answer. I don't have this thing. Okay. So just see, your past paper book should have an answer. Right? The demand, right? The demand for LKR represents what? Represents the demand for exports and capital inflows, money that is coming in. So then, right, let's say if the exchange rate, right, depreciates, that means goes to 0.008, what happens? What happens to your exports, guys? Does it become cheaper or expensive? Exports become cheaper or expensive? Exports become cheaper, no? Right, so exports become cheaper. What happens as a result? As a result, demand for exports increase, meaning, right, the demand for LKR increase. Is that clear? Yes or no? If the exchange rate depreciates, exports become cheaper, meaning people will buy more exports, so the demand for LKR increases. So when it goes down, the demand for LKR increases. So that is why there is a downward slope. There is a negative relation. So when this goes down, this increases. Then look at the other side of this. I'll talk about the supply here. If you look at the supply, okay, supply of LKR, what does the supply of LKR represent? Supply of LKR represents, right, the demand for imports and capital outflows, that money going out. So then let's say if the exchange, I'll only talk of the depreciation side, you think of the depreciation at home, right? Exchange rate depreciates. When the exchange rate depreciates, let's say it again goes to 0.008. Okay. When the exchange rate depreciates, what happens? Imports become cheaper or expensive, guys. Imports become cheaper or expensive if this depreciates. Imports become, exchange rate depreciates, imports become expensive, right? So when imports become expensive, right, what happens to the demand for imports? Demand for imports increase or decrease? Demand for imports decrease, right? So that means you're not importing. So demand for imports decreasing means what is happening? You're not sending money out, no, right? Money is not going out. You're not buying the import. The supply of LKR decrease. Got it? Yes or no? I only talked about depreciation, guys. The appreciation is the opposite side of this. Unit 8, 9, and 10 recordings I'll upload when I find some time. I have not yet uploaded it. I'll see. Probably give me like a week or two. Okay. Is that clear, guys? No? A depreciation. So when this depreciates, exports are cheaper. So demand for LKR increases. Right? Goes that way. Downwards though. Imports what happen? When this depreciates, imports become expensive. So supply of LKR falls. This one. So same thing, you can talk of the opposite when there is a appreciate. If you can understand that, if you know that in depth, I think that's a good story to know. Right? I'm thinking I might do a session on this exchange rate thing. We are finding for a teacher to do a small session on that. Did you all go for the free seminar series? Was it okay? How is it going? I was not in touch these days. I couldn't. I did the first 2 sessions for econ. How is there was a session that I shared on the group on national income accounting. Was it good? That was also a friend of mine. So I think it was good enough. So I think there is a session today also on something, right? Today also there is a session on, I think, accounting something, right? For accounting, I think there's a session in the evening. I think it's there on that group also if you all have registered from 4 to 6. So I'll share the link if on the BYC also if anyone is not there on that. So it's on lease, no? Okay, I'm not expert on that. So go and see, guys. You all might learn something. And see, so probably for econ, you might have one more session. Sometimes I might do it, sometimes someone else might do it. I'm not sure, depending on the availability. Let me know if there's any specific topic that you all want to. We are thinking of something on exchange rate. How does these curves work, foreign reserves and stuff? But then even for me to do that session, I have to do a lot of reading and research and come and do. So I'm thinking if I have the time to do all of that, because I need to make a note on that and do all of it. We'll see, right? Okay, so that's the 2016 paper. Okay, so that's where I will end for today. Okay, we are done with this. One more class, we are done with credit creation. I did, guys. That recording should be there on our club page. Okay. So this is there. We're done with this. Next class, we will be done with unit number 9 and 10. I'll upload the recordings somewhat soon. Answer this in the sense. If you have a question, let me know. You want me to send this the final one's answer? I'll send it, guys. Then this thing I'll get a picture and show you. I'll send it to you. Okay. Right, so that's basically it from me. I'll see you all again probably next Saturday, or maybe in case sometimes if Saturday is not possible, maybe on Sunday. I'll let you all know the time, most probably Saturday. Okay. So if you have questions, you all can stay and clarify. If not, thank you for coming. I'll see you all next week.